Welcome to the Interstate Mets Report with your hosts, Nelson and Chris.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 39 of the Interstate Mets Report. It's your boy CP here with my co-host. I was going to say co-host Chris. It's been that type of Friday. With my co-host Nelson, aka How Much Country Mets fan. How are you doing today, buddy?
Not too bad. A little busy, but all good. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot to talk about. I'm doing great. It's even better in terms of my Mets fandom. We got some news to talk about finally up here, talking about a slow offseason thus far. And we got a lot of news, as you can see per your screen, in Shintaro Fujinami and a couple of other news clips that we have seen from the New York Mets as of today. As always, like I said, we're just getting kicked off here. We'll be going for about 45 minutes. Around that time period, we have some time constraints today, but make sure you hit that thumbs up on both streams. It's streaming to both YouTube channels. You know where to find us on YouTube, X, Instagram, all that good stuff, and our YouTubes. If you haven't subscribed before, if you're new, or in the description down below. Likewise, make sure you follow our joint account on X at Interstate Mets. You know where to find us. Like I said, I appreciate everyone rocking with us. We got Carlos Ortiz in the chat saying what's up. We got Darren in the chat. I appreciate you, Darren, LGM. And we got Tom. Good evening, gents. I know where it's at. I know where you're at, Tom. It's evening, so I appreciate you taking a couple of minutes here to talk some Mets baseball with us. Thank you for the support as always. Now, Nelson, it's been quite the day in terms of the Mets news. We're going to get into that here in just a second, but like I said, I just wanted to shout out everybody before we got into it. But let's get into that news and the news that we've been seeing here. Here are your latest Mets updates, especially those updates that have happened since we went live as of last Friday. Obviously, a lot of bullpen additions over the course of the last week. Here are your updates. Mets signed Adam Ottavino to a one-year, $4.5 million deal. They also signed Shintaro Fujinami, the news that dropped today, to a one-year, $3.35 million deal, according to John Heyman. Mets signed Jake Diekman to a one-year, just a $4 million deal there for Jake Diekman. The sort of, I guess, agreement metrics to Jake Diekman's deal was sort of a little bit up in the air for the last couple of days, or last day or so, I should say. Obviously, we didn't see any sort of agreement yesterday when the news dropped, but I think it was Anthony DiComo today saying that it is a one-year, $4 million deal with a vesting option for the next year. So if he hits his incentives and he hits his markers, he probably will be returning to the Mets next year, as I understand it. And lastly, to round it all out, the Mets trade Taylor Heineman to the Red Sox for cash. A little bit of news there. I believe he was DFA'd from the 40-man roster and he cleared waivers, and they decided to trade him to the Red Sox. Nelson, let's kick it off. I don't have the numbers up here for Mr. Adam Ottavino, Mr. Fujinami, or Mr. Diekman, but let's talk about these moves and who they are as pitchers, and we'll get into a little bit more of the bullpen outlook here in just a second. What you got on these guys?
I mean, we know what Ottavino is, right? Like, we talked about him on the live with Anthony from Subway to Shea. Like, he is what he is. He had, 3.2 something ERA last year. Obviously had issues holding on runners. Almost anytime somebody got on base, it was like giving up a double. So that's a problem, obviously. Need him to try to rectify that a little bit somehow. Hopefully, we talked about the fact that he switched up his pitch sequences from 2022 to 2023. He threw some pitches less and others more, and to not the greatest results. So we might maybe see some more tinkering with that. But I think, he's fine. He's good enough to be a 7th or 8th inning guy. Diekman, we needed another lefty. We've said it. Obviously, we were looking into Peralta. Apparently, we made an offer. Didn't quite work out, but he would have been nice. But Diekman's a solid arm. He had a good year last year for the Rays. Can't complain. These guys are all on one-year deals. These guys are all cheap. $4.5 million the most is Ottavino's making. And then the surprise to me really is the one today, Fujinami. We've talked about him. I've said he was of interest to me before, but we never really heard anything like him being on our radar. So I kind of forgot about him, to be honest. And here we go, and we signed him to a deal. And listen, if you look at his numbers, um, they're not pretty, right? From last year, he had like a 7 ERA, over 7 ERA. But after he got traded from the A's, he started off as a starting pitcher with the A's. They would just kind of leave him in there to get shelled. So that inflated his numbers a bit. But after he got traded, he did pitch better from the Orioles out of the bullpen. Granted, he still had a high four ERA in the high fours, but the guy has a fastball that's like phenomenal. I think his average velocity is like 98.4. So if you can harness his stuff, maybe having his countrymen on the team in Senga makes him a little more comfortable, helps him out a little bit. The relationship, maybe Hefner can figure something out there. These are all solid arms. Like this pen has gone from being a kind of a question mark, even though I still thought it was solid, to I think legitimately now it has a chance to be one of the better bullpens in baseball. Like I really do think that. Sure, it would have been nice to get maybe a flashier arm, but that wasn't in the cards. It's fine. I don't think I've been on record. I like building a bullpen this way. And we haven't. This isn't even talking about all the guys. We have so many options for the bullpen. Like it's going to be quite the battle in spring to see who actually ends up in this bullpen because we have. I mean, I made a note because
I have the graphic in the next slide. We have all the names up there. I will get to that.
All right, we'll talk about it, but it's like it's a lot of guys. So there's going to be guys that aren't going to make the team. Hopefully, some of them clear waivers and can stick around in spring training because you're always going to need extra arms, right? Nobody stays healthy throughout the whole year, or it's very rare. So you're going to need extra arms. It's nice to see. Nice to see us build so much depth in the pen, and that can only help our starters too, right? Because we don't have the like I don't even know how to put it the most lockdown rotation in baseball. Obviously, we're relying on a lot of what ifs. I still think it has potential, but definitely would have been nice to get that one extra arm for the top of the rotation, but. For what we were able to do with the money we've been able to do it with, I think we've got a pretty solid team, solid bullpen working here.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I give my take on this too, all solid points, like you said, and you like you said to a T, we know what we're getting with Adam Ottavino and more or less Jake Diekman and Fujinami is more of that project. We'll get into that here in just a second. But Stevie Max checking out with us here in the chat. Appreciate you, Stevie. Thank you for the support as always. Tom saying Bickford and the Mets couldn't agree on a deal and went to arbitration. I wonder if the Diekman and Fujinami deal means that Mets walk away and don't bother. I don't like Phil Bickford. I think that he was just a throw in last year to be traded and just eat up a lot of innings for the Mets. Obviously, in that deal with the Dodgers, I don't foresee him having any sort of impact on this team moving forward. I don't really care about Phil Bickford, if I'm not going to lie to you. I think both those guys that we just acquired are better than him regardless. So I agree with that notion. And Aaron's wondering if you're going to ever – I keep forgetting to remind you, so I apologize about that. But it is always Hawaiian Fridays. But thank you, Aaron, for tuning into the stream. We got Carlos Ortiz. This is the goal. We want David Stearns to listen to the podcast. We want David Stearns to listen in on what names we're telling him to get. And you know what, Carlos Ortiz? Maybe he has a burner account. Maybe one of you all are actually David Stearns on a burner account. Have you ever thought about that? You never know.
Wouldn't that be funny? Not even Stearns so much because Stearns, he doesn't have the greatest social media presence, but I could imagine Steve Cohen has burner freaking YouTube accounts and even burner Twitter accounts. Like, yeah, he has his own, but I'm sure he has burner accounts that he's like logging on and looking at stuff. And
he's lurking.
Yeah, he's lurking. Steve is definitely a lurker. I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Darren saying the main thing is we have options and depth in the bullpen with plus stuff. Yes, we will get into that in the next graphic here, especially in the front end with all those excess guys that may not make the actual 26-man roster, but you hope they clear waivers and come back to the New York Mets. We'll talk about that here in just a second. I have that graphic up. And Aaron Cass is saying, Todd Frazier did say in the Till Mets Do His Part podcast that they always check the socials. Yeah, man. That was actually kind of cool. I actually asked that in that chat when they interviewed Ibby and John interviewed Todd Frazier, and I was basically asking how often over the course of 162 games do you check social media as a ball player? And he said that, regardless if players want to say they don't, they always usually do in some way or some fashion. And whether it's through a burner or whether it's through their main social media account. So they definitely hear the noise. And that was in relation to that whole Todd Frazier and Gary Cohen kind of, I guess, conversation that they had back then. But bygones are bygones. And that was just a little bit of a fun topic. And Carlos is saying, no, it's not me. It's not me, the burner. I know, Carlos, but maybe it's somebody else in this chat. Maybe. But anyways, yeah, so I guess in terms of the relation to these updates, like I said, the Taylor Heineman for Cash is always good. We always like our old friend Cash considerations coming back to us in a deal. Obviously, Adam Ottavino, we know we're going to get. We've talked about Adam Ottavino, especially on my channel and in the live streams that we've done, not only on here, but with the Subway to Shea podcast. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you go check that out. Available on YouTube and Spotify at Subway to Shea. We talked about Adam Ottavino and the splits between the different numbers. He's had a couple of different pitches that he's thrown for less usage rate. And then obviously that one pitch, I believe it was his cutter that he threw more in 2023 that absolutely got shelled. He threw his four-seam fastball a lot less in 2023. He threw that slider, if you can believe it or not, at a lesser rate, a lower usage rate in 2023. And the numbers did inflate, and he did still walk a lot of batters, and he's not going to ever change the sort of fact that he can't ever hold runners on. But nonetheless, when he pitches out of the stretch and he pitches with runners on base, especially in scoring position, he somehow, some way finds ways to get out of jams and get out of innings. And we saw that reflected not only in the 2022 ERA, but the 2023 ERA, which was at 3.21, which honestly isn't that bad. I feel like Adam Ottavino failed the eye test in terms of a lot of Mets fans' trust in 2023. But when you look at the actual numbers of it, he actually wasn't that bad. 3.21 ERA is not the end all be all statistics wise, but it is a good marker for success rate. I still believe in the classic measurement, and it's not that bad. Shintaro Fujinami, obviously, if you go back and look at his rookie season last season, obviously appearing with the A's. This is his rookie season. I'm not even sure how old he is, but he came over from the Japanese league, if I'm not mistaken. And then he split time with the A's and Baltimore. Looked a lot better in Baltimore, posting a 4.18 ERA over there with them. And he posted a 7.18 ERA, which is horrible, right, at face value. But his stuff, this is a project as opposed to Adam Ottavino, which we know what we're going to be getting with them. We don't know what we're going to get with Shintaro Fujinami. We're just basically going off of what he has as potential and his stuff, right? An electric fastball can touch 101, 102. He averages, like you said, 98.5 to 99 miles per hour per the Savant page, but he has the capability of getting up there in triple digits. He has a split finger and a cutter to go along that as well. That I believe his cutter was his best pitch, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the batting average from opposing batters. So he has all these pitches. He used the slider at a 6% usage rate in 2023 as well. Excuse me, down the wrong windpipe. Anyways, yeah, so we know what we're going to be getting out of Adam Ottavino, not so much Shintaro Fujinami. That's why I understand people are like, oh, 7.18 ERA, this, that. But like I said, when you have Drew Smith in the bullpen, do you really want to rely on him, or do you want to get a project for Jeremy Hefner that has plus stuff to sort of go ahead and mitigate some of those Drew Smith innings? And that's what I think we're getting in Shintaro Fujinami. He's not going to be a setup man. He's not going to be appearing in high leverage situations. He still is only going into his second year. Let's not forget that. So he went to a better situation in Baltimore, and he did better. And I think that trend can definitely continue. That's what the Mets are banking on here. And it's only a 1-year deal at the end of the day. 1 year, $3.35 million. Jake,
let's remember he was a starter too, so he has that potential to pitch in that kind of swingman role too, if you need him. So it's there's nothing wrong with this deal. Like I if you complaining about this one, I don't really get it. But 1-year deals, I'm fine with these 1-year deals.
Yep. Yeah, I'm fine with the 1-year deals too. And then Diekman, like I said, it's a 1-year deal at face value, but there's a vesting option because you have Brooks Raley, who I believe, fact check me, is a free agent next season. Obviously, I believe the Mets picked up the club option. If Brooks Raley walks, then you have that lefty reliever if he does well in 2024 and hits its metrics going into 2025. Now, like I said, Jake Diekman is in the same category as Adam Ottavino. He's a 12-year MLB veteran. We know what we're going to get out of Jake Diekman. He has 95, 96, maybe even 97 from the left-handed side of the mound. Electric fastball, nice little slider, but he's going to walk guys too. He's going to walk guys too. And all of these guys, Adam Ottavino, Fujinami, and Diekman, have walk issues. They have command issues. And this is where Jeremy Hefner, that sort of pitch lab whisperer, whatever you want to call him, the guru that all teams wanted to trade for, with his status up in the air, surviving multiple regimes of this Mets team. This is what you give a guy like Jeremy Hefner to do his job and do his due diligence in terms of turning these guys into a little bit better than what they've posted in their careers. But Jake Diekman last season, a great sort of showing, especially when he went to the Tampa Bay Rays during the trade deadline, posting a 2.18 ERA with them. He still walked batters, but what does that show with these guys' ERA, even given the walks, minus Shintaro Fujinami, who had the high ERA? Adam Ottavino and Jake Diekman can pitch out of jams, and they're used to that, which is, I guess, what you don't want to hear that, and you don't want to see that, because you'd prefer 1, 2, 3 innings in a perfect world scenario. I understand that, but their ability to sort of perform under pressure with runners in scoring position is something to be said for that as well. So that's what I like about that. Anything else on these three guys before we get into the overall bullpen outlook, Nelson?
No, not really. I did see though, according to Fangraphs, the expected win projection for the Mets is actually exactly 500 now after signing these two guys. So, according to them, anyway. So, just an interesting.
What was it before? So 81 and 81 now. What was it before?
I'm not sure what exactly it was before. Obviously under 500, but I don't think it's that far off. But they probably bumped us to about a win or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, even before these two guys, Diekman and Fujinami, I had this team, even before Ottavino, I had this team at 81 wins, even 500. So, I mean, obviously they were undercutting the Mets a little bit, at least in my eyes. But now I really do think that 500 is definitely at play. That's absolutely like a no-brainer. And they can even get upwards of like 82, 83, 84 wins. That'll put them right there in contention for that wild card spot, which is great. So I think that is something to be said for as well in terms of maintaining that competitiveness that David Stearns has stressed.
Could you imagine if they jumped in out of nowhere and signed like freaking Jordan Montgomery or JD, but the more of it, like I feel like that top of the rotation ish arm. I'm not saying Montgomery's an ace, but if you added that one more arm, like this team then really looks like a serious contender compared to where we are now. I mean, I think we'll be in contention and, like you said, around 500. But man, if you could add that one arm to that starting rotation, that could be something. Obviously, I don't think it's going to happen. He's still going to probably make way more and last for too many years. But man, that would be something if we can add that one more arm.
Yeah. And it's definitely not going to happen, like you said, in terms of the starting rotation. But I think that's why a lot of Met fans took to Twitter yesterday when they saw the Corbin Burnes news and the package that the Orioles gave up to the Brewers for Corbin Burnes. And I was like, damn, like, is their number 6 overall prospect, the shortstop, I believe, I forgot his name, but he went over to the Brewers. And then DL Hall, who I've never even heard of in my life before. No disrespect to him, but it's like, I understand that he's on the 1-year deal. And I believe Corbin Burnes is a Boras client. That is new ownership now in Baltimore. I believe Corbin Burnes is a Boras client. So we'll see how that sort of extension talk works with that new ownership group in Baltimore. Because if you get a guy of that caliber in your rotation, you don't want to let him walk. Because this is a guy that I wanted the Mets to trade for. Even if on that expiring contract, the Mets were showing no willingness to do that and holding true to their strategy. But obviously, I wanted this guy, the Mets, to go after him, Corbin Burnes, that is, in free agency. So now he's a Baltimore Oriole. Just a little bit of news there for you all in case you are somehow sleeping on the TL on Twitter and did not hear that. Corbin Burnes is now a Baltimore Oriole. So,
yeah, the Hall was actually, I mean, he was ranked as high as I think 47 on the Baseball America's top 100 prospects a few years ago. So Hall's an arm. I mean, he got his first year in the league was last year. He didn't pitch a ton, but he's a pretty solid arm. And for the Mets to match that, like I think I've told you, like they would have had to trade Acuna because that was basically the equivalent of Ortiz. And then I don't know that the Mets had an arm to match Hall, like unless they were willing to take lesser prospects that weren't called up yet, because Hall has major league experience, which is
Sure.
something the Mets don't have really major league ready young arms that.
Would that be like a Jose Butto though? Because he's 25 years old, has some major league experience.
Hall's got way bigger pedigree than Budo though. Like Budo was never a considered a top prospect. So
Right.
right.
Oh, he got up to 47 on the top 100. You're saying?
Yeah, he was a.
Oh shoot. Okay, I see.
He was a legit prospect for the O's. That's nasty stuff. Yeah, he's not a bad get. Like honestly, the Orioles could have done a lot, or the Brewers could have done a lot worse. So
Right.
I think for teams thinking that, like I saw a lot of Yankee fans upset too. Like I think they're sleeping on the package that it's not a ton of guys, but the two guys that the Brewers got are pretty solid.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, Corbin Burns will monitor that situation with the new ownership group, and good for O's fans. Like that ownership change is going to do wonders for them. And on top of already the success that they've been seeing the last couple of seasons after that rebuild. Let's get into some of the comments. Like I said, as always, guys, I appreciate it. Tell your friends, tell your family about the Interstate Mets Report. If they need more Mets content, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to both channels. I appreciate it. Hitting that thumbs up means a lot on both streams. Both streaming to my YouTube account at CPNY Sports, and obviously Nelson's as well at Amish Country Mets Fan. You can find him on YouTube as well. All right, moving on. Let's talk about that depth. Actually, I'm going to prop up a couple more comments here before we get into it. Carlos is predicting 84 wins. That's not a bad estimate at this point. I think the Fangraphs is underselling in terms of the projections. That's not a bad estimate, Carlos. M-Easy. This is something that I've been talking about. I dropped the impromptu video about Eddie Rosario potentially being that platoon bat if they really desperately want some sort of lefty DH to walk into the doors. Brandon Belt had Eddie Rosario type numbers last season, but his OPS was like 100 points higher than Eddie Rosario. So I like the name Brandon Belt if that's on the Mets' radars. Nelson, do you have any sort of interjections or thoughts on that? Not your name brands, Jorge Soler's or JD Martinez's?
No, I mean, I've wanted some sort of bat this whole offseason. I've just resigned myself to the fact that we're not getting it. But yeah, I think the two things that could help put this team over the top, I've said it time and time again, I don't think it's a bad team, but the two things that could really make me say, yeah, we're going to probably make the playoffs is if we added a legitimate DH and if we had another top of the rotation arm. I definitely don't think we're getting both. Maybe we'll get that DH. Who knows?
Maybe.
Obviously,
maybe
guys are scrambling. You see prices are coming down a bit. So who knows? Maybe it's in the cards. Maybe we do see a JD Martinez or a Brandon Belt. I wouldn't complain at even Eddie Rosario. I wouldn't complain. To me, having more options and guys that can make the lineup longer and give us more opportunities to score runs, I don't think any of that's a bad thing. So I'm all in for it if we can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven is saying we need a bat behind Pete. Absolutely. Steven also on my live stream yesterday on the True Mets Talk podcast asked if we're going to be live streaming games this upcoming season, Nelson. Are we going to be doing that? Because we did it last season a couple times. That's something that I'd be interested in doing. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'd definitely be interested in doing some of that. It was fun doing it last year. It'd be fun to do it again this year.
Yeah, that one game, the Pete Alonso walk-off against Tampa, that was probably like one of our early YouTube like highlights, at least mine when I first started my channel in terms of calling that live. So yeah, man, that was a blast.
It wasn't even a planned live. That was just supposed to be a post game, but because it went to extra innings, we went early.
Yeah. The Alvarez bomb, the Alvarez home run is what sparked that. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Aaron, Christian Yelich, man, I put that video up on my channel for next offseason. Freddie Peralta and Christian Yelich package coming to New York. If the Mets need to kill two birds with one stone, especially getting that pitcher that we've been talking about, maybe not this offseason, but maybe next offseason, I wouldn't discount it. I know Christian Yelich is not the same guy who he was, but still capable of 20-plus home runs. And not a terrible hitter is what I'll say. So we'll see. And Patrick's checking into the stream. What's up, chat? Stearns having a low-key excellent week. I like it, Patrick. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate the support. All right, let's get back into it. I know we're running short on time here, 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes here or so. Let's get into the bullpen outlook. On the top of your screen, we have what I think the bullpen's going to be shaken out like. I think the only sort of thing that you can say here is that Michael Tonkin can switch places with a guy like Jose Butto, who's not on the graphic, and I completely forgot about him. But Jose Butto could definitely be that like long man type reliever. I know someone in the chat here is saying Shintaro Fujinami, potentially with him being a starter and having starter experience, could be that as well if he holds true to being sort of a little bit better than what he's been. But I think Jose Butto is the best suited, at least to start off 2024, to be that long man reliever. And obviously the depth pieces that Stearns was accumulating all throughout the early offseason that you were alluding to before a couple minutes ago, and Kyle Crick, Austin Adams, and all the way down, even Bryce Montes Diaco, who are getting back from injury, flamethrower himself, able to get up to 100 miles per hour. This bullpen is set up for longevity, and they're set up for success, and they're also set up for success given any sort of hiccups that the starting rotation may have. We know we have question marks in the starting rotation with Quintana, right? I'm going to call him a question mark, even though he looked pretty decent coming back from injury last season. Luis Severino, what version are we going to get from him? Sean Manaea, same thing. If these guys only go 4 to 5 innings, this bullpen is set up for success. And not only that, I hopped in on Talking Mets with Rob's live stream today when he broke the Shintaro Fujinami news on his live stream. And I said that the most important thing of this list that you see here is that it gives first-year manager Carlos Mendoza options, and that is important. That is important. So what do you think about this list, Nelson?
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid list, and there's names even missing off of this list. I mean, I know you said you don't like him, but Phil Bickford will be part of this fold. Yaxel Rios, who we signed, also could be in the mix. Andre Scrub, another guy, could be in the mix. So it's a lot of options. What's interesting is that really like the top list is pretty like you're looking at 7 guys out of that 8 that are almost, I wouldn't call them all locks, but they're pretty close, right? More than likely those guys are going to be in. So you got a slew of guys battling out for that with Michael Tonkin for that last spot. Kranick's an interesting name because he's another guy that he's been a starter, so he could battle it out for a 6th starter role or what have you, maybe. Hartwig, who knows? He wasn't very good last year. Diaco obviously has nasty stuff. He's coming off injury. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back. It's a lot of guys that have stuff, all similar stuff. A lot of guys with high velocity fastballs, sweeper slider types. It's what Stearns has been targeting. It's what he obviously sees that as a plus in these guys' arsenal. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But I think after all the moaning and groaning we've heard about the bullpen, I think he's actually built a pretty solid pen, and he's given us enough options to where if something happens, if there's an injury, if one of these guys gets shelled in the spring, then you can figure something out and get these guys, other guys in there. I see M-Easy. I don't think Drew Smith is a lot. How could he not be though? Like he's been in the pen like pretty much every year. Like it's obvious they keep giving him a shot. I'm not saying I like it, but unless he goes out in spring and just absolutely stinks, I think he's gonna be in the pen. Like I don't think people want to hear that. Listen, I'm not a fan either, but I don't have reason to believe that he won't be, right? Like I don't know. Unless there's like a trade or something, somebody wants to trade for Drew Smith, but I just don't see him getting bounced. Like he's been a mainstay in this pen, so it would shock me if he's not in the pen. It really would.
This is last year. This is his last chance, Drew Smith, in my eyes. This is his last chance.
Looks like Grant says he thinks Kranick will beat out Tonkin. Yeah, it's interesting, and the point about options is an interesting one. Like a lot will depend on these guys having options. Fujinami does have options, so if for whatever reason they don't feel like he's ready at the beginning of the year, they could send him to AAA and he could get replaced by one of these other guys. So there is some room for maneuvering, but to me, a lot of those names on the top of this list are pretty set. Jorge Lopez to me is the one that I want to see what he's got, because I know he has a live arm. He has potential to really be good. It's just whether or not he can put it all together. I like what we have here, man. There's no sexy names, but
minus Edwin Diaz, I guess.
Yeah, minus Edwin Diaz, really, but you don't need a bullpen to have those like flashy names to be good, right? So
no, not at all. Not at all.
And Tom makes a good point. It is pretty deep. Like I like it. I have no complaints with how Stearns has chosen to build this bullpen, and the fact is, he's known for building good bullpens in with the Brewers. So that's why it makes me even have more faith in what he's doing here.
So, and my whole thing is, and I've said this before, is like there was a clear pattern in what David Stearns was doing earlier on this offseason in terms of adding those guys that possess those sweeper slider combinations, your off-speed pitches, predominant, type pitchers, type relievers. You see it with Kyle Crick, Austin Adams. They have big bending sliders. And more of these guys here that I haven't named and that I might have missed are the same sort of way. And then you get into this week, and obviously I'm not saying Adam Ottavino is going to overpower with the fastball, but he has 95, 96 up his sleeve if he wants to. Usually sits anywhere between 93, 94, but he has it up his sleeve to get a couple ticks higher. And then you add Diekman from the left side, who can throw 96, 97 if he wants to as well. And then obviously Shintaro Fujinami up to triple digits. Like, you have a good combination of guys that have the predominant off speed and then obviously have the power guys there that you have up top. It's a good combination to have, and it gives, like I said, Carlos Mendoza that much more flexibility. And I sort of like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I threw this graphic up like 15 minutes before we started because I was just in a rush today, but that's why I'm missing some names. But you have like righty lefty combination options, right? Because if you want to use Brooks Raley in the latter half in higher leverage situations, okay, well, Jake Diekman can be that sixth inning guy from the left side. Same thing with Adam Ottavino from the right side. You can throw him in higher leverage situations, whether it's him or Jorge Lopez. And I think Grant is saying in the chat, Lopez is going to have a tremendous impact right here. He's going to either be great or really bad, to be honest. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to show flashes of brilliance. I think, like I said, all these guys have the potential. That's why the Mets sort of brought him in, even though their stats are kind of what they have been. Jorge Lopez obviously having a little bit of a down 2023, but nonetheless, you have options in terms of using these guys. You have guys that can be used in higher leverage situations, right? In the back end, you see the top 3 names, top 4 names, versus the guys at the bottom, starting with Diekman, Fujinami, Drew Smith, that can be used in lower leverage situations. Maybe your 5th inning if your starter can't go that far, or maybe your 6th inning. That's what's up. Like, that's what I need to see. And that's what David Stearns has done as a president of baseball operations that's inherited an organization that was quite literally in flux in terms of the payroll. And he had a lot of restrictions in terms of what he could do this offseason. And he knew that coming in and taking the job. He has excelled in terms of putting together a complete bullpen on paper. And I say on paper with emphasis because it really is only on paper right now that we're talking about all of these guys. Like Grant is saying in this comment right here, they can be great and they can live up to their potential, or they can be what they have been in terms of your Fujinamis and being bad. Drew Smith cannot turn the corner and be bad like we've seen. Jake Diekman can go back to previous years and not show that 2023 success and be bad. Like, it's a toss-up with these guys, but you're hoping that Jeremy Hefner can get the most out of them. And that's why I'm excited right now as of February 2nd when looking at this bullpen and how deep it really is. So, yeah. We got Talking Mets with Rob. Check out his channel. If you don't already, most of you probably already do, because we do live streams all the time together, us 3. What up, boys? Interstate Legends. I appreciate that. That's high praise. Bullpen depth is the smart play. Absolutely, Rob. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about on your live stream earlier this morning as well. And that's exactly what is going to set up Carlos Mendoza and this team for success moving forward in 2024. David Stearns hit the nail on the head in that aspect. Now it's up to these players to just do the job, right? That's kind of what we're alluding to here. All right, we're about 35 minutes into the stream. We have a great bullpen. We've been talking about the updates that we saw today, even going back into the Ottavino signing. We're talking about the depth in his bullpen. Let's take a look at this sort of quote that we've been seeing floating around, especially when Andy Martino, I believe it was the one who said it. The Mets are holding $10 to $15 million in reserve in case they are in the playoff race at the trade deadline. That is per Andy Martino. What do you make of this, Nelson? Because I'm sort of like, it's not a head scratcher because all offseason long we've been saying let's wait and see in the first half of the season. And talking Mets with Rob, we've been saying that all the time. Like, this roster is really can go and break in two different directions, right? There could be a fork in the road where they're contenders in terms of that playoff spot at the deadline, or they're not, and they can sell off pieces. So what do you make of this sort of $10 to $15 million in reserve? Is it a good play, or would you have rather just saw this money up front in this offseason?
It doesn't really matter. It's Andy Martino. I don't know whether to believe him or not. I don't know where he's getting this from. He initially said we only had $10 million to spend for the whole rest of the offseason period. And I think we've already gone past that number. So who knows? 10 to 15 mil. Does Steve Cohen really need to save 10 to 15 million in reserve? Like, I don't know. That's an odd quote, I guess, but I guess the Mets seem to have a number they don't want to go over. If I had to guess, I don't know what exactly the number is. So, and that's fine because we all said it. The Mets need to find a way to reset their that luxury tax. It's out of control. Steve Cohen's paying millions of dollars for guys that are not even on this team. He's got to figure out a way to reset that. So if he does have a number, a limit to what he wants to spend, and 10 to 15 million is gonna more than 10 to 15 million is gonna put us over that, then fine, whatever. I don't care. I don't know. It's weird. It's just Martino just talks so much crap. It's hard to know what he's talking about. But yeah, the Mets obviously did not want to spend money on players that they didn't think were worth the money, right? They had one guy in their sights that they thought was worth just opening the vault, and that was Yamamoto. And he signed elsewhere. And after that, they were like, you know what? We don't see any of these guys as being worth it. And I don't blame them. Like, there really wasn't superstars out there to really go after, in my opinion. Like, obviously Ohtani wasn't in the cards either. So once Yamamoto went elsewhere, the plan changed. They were gonna be cautious with their spending, and that's fine. Like, if we really are saving 10 to 15 million, if we're contending, cool, then that means we can maybe add a decent piece in July, right? So whatever. I just hope we are contending because it would suck that to have another season play out like last year, and we're talking about moving all these guys instead of adding to it, right? So it's gonna be interesting. We need to get off to a good start this season and not to the start we did last year, because last year was not pretty.
Yeah, that was bad. Everything went wrong. Everything that could go wrong for the Mets in 2023 went wrong for the Mets. This is an interesting point, though, that Tom brings up. He said, I don't think it's about, I think he's talking about this quote. I don't think this figure is about being cheap / saving money. It's about not overpaying for average players. It was sending a message to the free agents that they were talking to. And like I said, and honestly, I was tuning into the stream. I believe it was today or yesterday. I forgot when Rob did a stream talking about this quote that he said. And it's brilliant. It's like the players really have lost this offseason, minus like your Yamamoto and your Otanis. Like, everybody else like, I guess Boras and those clients have been holding out in hopes to getting a bag and getting overpaid. But really, these owners and these teams have been holding out just as long. And they're like, all right, we're not going to overpay you. And you look at some of these contracts like Hector Neris, even what's his face that went to the Cubs that signed for like a crazy low deal that we thought was gonna be even more. What was that lefty? As soon as they go off the board, I forget their name now. You know what I'm talking about, though. You know
I know who you're talking about.
Anyways, it's like as soon as they get off the board and the Mets are out on them, it's like I forget their name. But anyways, yeah, the players have really lost. Yeah, Imanaga. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. Shota Imanaga. I've been talking about him all off season long. That it's just like his name is just lost upon me now. Anyways, yeah, Imanaga signed for a lower AAV than I thought he was going to get. I know there's like some kind of quirks in that, that deal. Same thing with Wandy Peralta, $4 million AAV. I know he has a lot of opt-outs, so you got the 4 years of protection, but I really thought with the last 3 years, he was going to get higher than $4 million a year. And that was around the ballpark that the Mets offered him as well. They offered him 2 years, anywhere between 8 to 10 million guaranteed. So anywhere between $4 to $5 million AAV. And you look at a reliever for the Yankees that turned his career around over there, and he posted a sub-3 ERA for the last 3 seasons. Like, this is crazy what we're seeing in this offseason in terms of these contracts. It's crazy. So anyways, yeah. Let alone the fact that we still have your big name bats like JD Martinez and Jorge Soler still out there. Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell on the pitching side. These guys haven't signed. We're a couple weeks away from spring training. Like what are we doing? That's crazy. That's madness. Anyways, we'll see who budgets first. Aaron bringing up a point here. Would you sign Woodruff at the deadline before the offseason? Yeah. Yes. And this is the other update that I missed was that the Mets, I guess, had made contact with Brandon Woodruff or had some internal discussions about making contact with Brandon Woodruff and potentially bringing him in. Obviously, undergoing shoulder surgery, ended his season last season a little bit prematurely, is not going to be appearing for the majority of 2024. Yeah, I definitely would. I made a video on Brandon Woodruff a couple months ago. I think it was 2 months ago. I was like, dude, let's go after this guy. Let's go after this guy. Let's get him under contract for a 2-year deal if that's what it takes, because he is a top 10 pitcher, maybe even borderline like top 6 in the league when healthy. He has great stuff, nasty stuff. It's unfortunate. I know those shoulder injuries are scary, and we'll see what kind of AAV he gets with it. But if you can get him on a cheap AAV deal and he gets medically cleared and it looks okay, I see no reason why not. I see no reason why not to get ahead of the curve in that 2025 offseason and sign a guy like that. Yeah, I understand that. Shoulder capsule is a problem for me. It's a problem for everybody. It's a problem for Brandon Woodruff. We understand that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to do your due diligence. You can't just sign him blindly. That's not what I'm alluding to. I'm saying doing your due diligence. Obviously, you have to go through the medicals. They didn't sign for Correa for a reason. They saw something with his medicals, and they're going to do the same thing with what's it called? With the Woodruff sort of situation. What do you think, Nelson?
Yeah, I mean, the shoulder does scare me, but
yeah,
if you get him at the right price, then that kind of mitigates that a little bit. Like, obviously, you don't want to give the guy a bag and then hope and pray that he's still healthy, right? You try to get him on a short-term, low-money deal and hope that he is healthy. But if he wants anything crazy, then I'm out, because it's the shoulder injury can be way worse than the elbow. I mean, he makes a good point.
Yep.
So I'm not looking to go out of my way to sign him. If he falls in our laps, then sure, like, let's do it. It's nice to have another option for the rotation next year, because right now we're kind of limited. But yeah, I don't want to go crazy in giving him anything too nuts, because you could find yourself in a position where you're paying for a useless arm. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll end it at that, because that's exactly like just the bottom line with Brandon Woodruff. Okay. So that was a little bit about Andy Martino's latest. He likes to spew out a lot of quotes. We know that. We'll see if these reports come to fruition. We'll see. I mean, it's a wait and see game with these Andy Martino reports. So we'll see. Last topic here before we get out of here for this weekend. I know it's a little bit of a shorter stream, but We got some prior commitments and we got to get out of here. But anyways, here are your 2024 spring training non-roster invitees. Now, before anyone says, where's Luis Angel Acuna? He's already on the 40-man roster. He's going to be appearing in spring training regardless, no matter what. Same thing with Zach Short. Now, these guys are not on the 40-man roster, but they have gotten invited to spring training. So here are your names. Obviously, the top 5 guys, top 6 guys even, is the names that I seriously like and very curious in terms of you were hear about these prospects all off season long. This Mets farm system is deep. It's got a lot of talent. Let's see what they can produce now in spring training. This is where we're going to get to see them against major league ready talent. Let's face it. Jet Williams, Drew Gilbert, Christian Scott, Mike Vasil headlining that, and then Hamill and Parada, also some pretty good prospects to see what they got. I had to put LOL next to Tomas Nito's name, man. I'm sorry to do him dirty, but I had to do it. Anyways,
there is a world in the spring where there were talks that the Mets were trying to get rid of Omar Narvaez. Who knows? If a team needs a catcher, somebody gets hurt in spring, and they call the Mets up, Tomas Nito could be our backup catcher again. Like, that's not we're laughing, but it could happen. So it'll be interesting to see him, I guess, in spring. Obviously, the big names are, like you said, everybody wants to see what Jet Williams, Drew Gilbert, Christian Scott, Vasil, even Hamill to a lesser extent can do. I'm even interested to see how Parada's spring goes. He obviously didn't have the greatest end to the last season. People are kind of souring on him quite a bit. Be interesting to see how he does. Nate Lavender is a name. We're going to hear that guy's name before the season's up. At some point, somebody's going to get hurt. He's an interesting lefty out of the bullpen. I like him. I think we'll see him pitching out of the bullpen at some point this year. Senger is whatever. I don't. He's one of those all glove, no stick kind of guys. Orze's another guy. Could make some noise out of the pen. Not as likely, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't forget his name either. Yeah, to me, the interesting ones are obviously the big guns. And to me, and I said it in a video I made today, a brief one, this isn't so much to me about results and how they necessarily perform in the spring, but I want these guys, I want Jet Williams attached to Francisco Lindor, right? I want Drew Gilbert attached to whoever, Alonso or any of the other bigger Nimmo. I want Christian Scott watching Senga pitch and learning things. Same for Vasil, Hamill. Like, the important part about spring for these kids is not so much that how they play and what their numbers are. It's them being able to learn from these other guys, learn from the veterans, pick something up. Like, how many times did we hear from players about back when David Wright was around about how much they kind of like soaked in what he had to say? And same with Jacob deGrom, and some pitchers would learn from him in spring. So, like, to me, that's important to get these guys some valuable time with some of our veterans, so where they can maybe pick up some things. You never know. Maybe they start trying new pitch or switch up their stance a little bit. They see somebody sees something that helps them out. So I like the fact that these guys will be there, that they'll have a chance to learn. And hopefully, man, we'll see a few of these guys actually on the roster at some point this season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is something that I'm excited for. And like I said, the title of this is Spring is Near for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, we have been waiting all off season to just stop talking about free agency and this DH situation and the pitching situation, etc. Now, the one thing before we get out of here is, I guess is like, wait, hold on. I had it here before. I actually favorited it, but then he said he was unsubscribing to us, so maybe I won't show it. I'm just kidding. Anyways, where was it? He said something earlier on about the DH, and I can't find it now. Anyways, yes, Yuki has a feel good here. Here you go. There's your chat. But no, he said something about the DH, and I should have favored it, but I didn't have the. Where is
Yuki
it?
needs to go back. He's not switching names enough for me. What happened?
Yeah, I had it too because he was talking about the DH. Anyways, yeah, Yuki was talking about the DH. I don't know where it is, but anyways, yeah, he also said Travis d'Arnaud hates the Mets the most. Anyways, that's beside us. But yeah, as in terms of us getting out of here, Mark Vientos, like I said, we could talk about Jorge Soler, JD Martinez. I have purposely not talked about those guys because I just don't see it happening. I know some people disagree. I know the prices are coming down, and I'll definitely eat my words in the tail end of this offseason if something does come to fruition in terms of those bigger names. But I'm sort of pivoting in terms of my DH talk. I'm pivoting back to your Eddie Rosarios, your Brandon Belts, like names that make sense in being that platoon lefty bat, that if the Mets front office doesn't have confidence in DJ Stewart, that they can plug and play a veteran like Brandon Bell or Eddie Rosario in there. Because at this point, I think the writing is on the wall. They want to get Mark Vientos at bats. We've been saying this all offseason long. We've been saying it predominantly over the last couple of months, like last month or so. So it wouldn't make sense to bring a righty in. And who are the lefties available in the market? It's not any of those big name guys. It's your Eddie Rosarios, your Brandon Belts. So that's the sort of pivot point that I'm going to be talking about the DH here as we close this offseason out. But I'm just not convinced that this team is going to go get a DH. Like I'm not convinced at this point. Not convinced. Daniel's
I'm not convinced either. But to me, it's more. Listen, I'm not the biggest Vientos guy. I think he can be solid enough. But to me, it's the point you made there is DJ Stewart. Like I know people fell in love with DJ Stewart because he had that little month run where he was hitting homers almost every game. It felt like, but this guy's track record isn't special. Like if we're really giving this guy the platoon spot, like I don't trust it. Like I can see a world where DJ Stewart underperforms what Daniel Vogelback did for us, and we're going to be wishing that we had a better option from that side of the plate. So I don't know. I'm with you. I do wish we'd at least consider bringing in one of those lesser names if we can't get Soler or Martinez, which are probably not on the radar. But yeah, I'm all about finding an upgrade for DJ Stewart for sure.
Yeah, and Brandon Belt hit what 255. Eddie Rosario hit the same thing around there. 19 home runs for Belt, 21 for Rosario. The OPS is much better for Brandon Belt. So like I said, both those guys are going to be upgrades because DJ Stewart had a Nick Plummer type run, as Tom is saying. The sample size just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. Daniel checking into the chat. In my opinion, Buck ruined the young guys last season with his idiotic play. Can't wait to see how they play this season. Yeah, more consistent at bats, and we need to see more consistent results. I think that is the theme for 2024. Okay, guys. Like I said, we try to prop everyone's comments up here. Yuki, I'm not sure if you actually have your feelings hurt or not. I apologize if I didn't get to your comments. We're trying to hit the flow of this conversation and prop up the comments that are relevant to the conversation. And we'll obviously, and we have been, we'll continue to get to everyone's comments. So, like I said, if there's any hard feelings, please don't take it that way. Anyways, Nelson. Yeah, it's okay. Everyone's okay. Everyone's good. Anyways, like I said, thank you, everyone. A little bit of a shorter stream. We try to hit all the main points here. We'll definitely be back next week. We'll see if the Mets indeed land a bat. Maybe that'll be a talking point next week. But if not, we'll be having the same old conversations until spring training starts, because I think the Mets are done in the starting pitching category. And I think they're done in the bullpen with the Diekman and the Shintaro Fujinami signings. I think that they're done with this bullpen being crowded. I don't expect any more pitching upgrades. This is what we got. This is what we're rolling in with. Nelson, final words before we get out of here.
Really not much to say. I think a good job, David Stearns, this week, building the pen and making it, in my opinion, pretty solid. And we'll see what happens with the bat. Like you said, I don't think it's gonna happen, but it'll be a nice surprise if it does. But like you said, everywhere else, I think things are kind of wrapped up, right? Spring's right around the corner. We're going to start playing some games and see how things roll. Thank you everybody for watching the show. It's good to be back. sub to the channel, Amish Country Mets fan, if you haven't already. Follow me on X at Amish Country Met. It's just Amish Country Met on X. And yeah, appreciate everybody and look forward to talking to you guys again next week.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like I said, sub up. I got the True Mets Talk podcast, did a live stream yesterday. Go check that out if you missed it. Like I said, I appreciate all the support on the channel. Hit that thumbs up on both streams. Subscribe to both channels. It's in the description down below. You can find both channels. If you're subscribed to one, go subscribe to the other. And don't miss out on any future Mets updates from all of us. Like I said, I appreciate all the support in the community here. It means a lot. Rich checking in saying great show. Stevie saying take care, guys. Darren saying LGM. Richard even commenting here about something we talked about, Smith and Narvaez in potential trades to free up money, which is definitely a possibility. We got Daniel in the chat, Patrick in the chat, Carlos in the chat, Aaron in the chat, Tom in the chat, everybody, Yuki in the chat. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you for coming in and have a conversation with us. We definitely appreciate it. And, like I said, keep rocking with us. We'll be here next week for you all. This has been the latest episode, the latest edition of the Interstate Mets Report, episode 39. Spring is near. Take care, guys. Peace. Let's go Mets.
Thank you for watching the Interstate Mets Report, streaming Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to @Amish